You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
All right, Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, and like the dude just said, we are just plain right. Man, it's local, it's state, it's national. We are covering down on all of the issues, and it is, by the way, what day is this? Tuesday. It's Tuesday, August 23rd, and the Boomer is on the board. Hey, bud, how you doing today?
Oh, man, it's a good day. It's a good day.
Good.
Yeah.
It's good. I mean, I like it when I come in here and I've had me, like, it's already been a full day already. And like, I come in and you're like, it's a great day.
It's a great day. Yesterday, I was not on my A game.
You were fine. I thought you were good. All right. Well, we're here for each other, I guess, then. So, all right, listen, we got some good stuff online today. We're gonna get that triple dipper sound effect ready, bud. And at 3:00 today, a friend of mine, Will Blakely, who's a reporter for 1819 News, he just wrote a great piece, and it just happens to be what I'm going to be talking about today in one of my dippers. So yeah, he wrote a great piece on ESG investing. Have you seen this stuff? I've talked about it on the show several times. Listen, this to me is one of the greatest threats to capitalism that's out there. It's insidious, it's behind the scenes, and it's changing the dynamics of what happens with our money, especially in pension plans. So 1819 News, Will Blakely, 3:00, ESG. You're going to want to see that or hear that interview. So there's that. And then we got a triple dipper on top of that, so hit it, bud.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper. 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that we are going to run today's show on. Number 1 follows right in line with that discussion with Will Blakely that we're going to have at 3. I'm calling it Woke Investing in Alabama. You may be surprised to find out that there are a number of Alabama-based corporations, major corporations, that are dabbling in this ESG stuff that literally says it's not about profits, it's about how woke we are. Well, how does that impact profits? Not only that, are you a state employee? Do you have a retirement in the RSA, the Retirement Systems of Alabama? You might be curious to find out that they're kind of leaning ESG-ish too if they get down to it. All right, there's number 1 of the Triple Dipper, woke investing in Alabama. Number 2, the need for speed. Man, we're going to step aside. We're going to be less serious but yet serious because, it's amazing to watch. Apparently, Top Gun Maverick, which, by the way, is one of my favorite new movies. Top Gun Maverick has just become one of the highest grossing movies in the history of movies, like in the history of ever. And it's because it's a good movie, but many people say it's also because, you know what? It provides something that the American psyche just needs. And we're going to talk about it. The need for speed, that's number 2. And then number 3, I saved it from yesterday. They just can't read the room. It's amazing to me, politicos who do things, and they think, well, this is just the way it's supposed to be. Why would you dare to question? Well, how about this? Go read the room, please. Nobody's cottoning to your ideas, and when you say them, it's just insulting because you're not listening to us. So yeah, number 3 on the Triple Dipper, they just can't read the room. Which kind of brings me to my points in my monologue today. So I'll be honest with you. We should at all times be willing and able to exercise the right that we have in a free society to ask questions. Ain't nothing wrong with asking the question. It doesn't mean you're belligerent. It doesn't mean you're a lawbreaker. It doesn't mean you're bucking authority. It's a right to be a free thinker in this country. Now, listen, I've told you all before, I was a knothead kid, right? I mean, I was always getting into something. Always kind of curious about the what if. Like the time that my mom emptied out the medicine cabinet and I saw all that stuff in the trash and I thought to myself, I wonder what would happen if I mixed all that together. Well, something didn't mix well with something else and we had to clean that stuff off the ceiling before Mom got home. So don't ever leave a knothead kid alone too long because anything can happen. But I was always questioning, I was always wondering, I was always very inquisitive. I mean, if something worked, I wanted to know why. If something was considered this the way it was, I wanted to know why it was the way it was. If somebody said, here's how you do something, I was kind of inclined to see if there was also another way it could be done. I remember my grandfather teaching me to pitch horseshoes. It was my granddaddy McBride, or Granddaddy Mac as we called him. He built 2 sand-filled horseshoe pits in his backyard, and I can distinctly remember this. My brother and I were out in the back with him getting lessons on how this game worked. And he says in his classic fashion, he said, "Boy, you pitch the horseshoes underhanded like this. And if you get one wrapped around the post, that's called a ringer. It's 5 points. And boy, if you get one that leans up against the post, that's called a leaner. It's worth 3 points." And I'll never forget this. In classic knothead questioning fashion, I looked at him and I said, "Granddaddy, what if I get one just to hang on top of the post?" He just stared at me kind of deadpan for about 5 seconds, and he said, "Well, boy, I guess you win the game." But I did. I asked questions. I asked questions all the time. Sometimes the questions would slow me down. Like to this day, I'll be honest with you, I have a hard time reading a book because I want to underline key points and tab the pages for future reference. It's kind of hard to fall asleep reading a good book when you act like you're studying all the time. But sometimes, though, those questions have stood me well. I found out once when I was in Afghanistan that Donald Rumsfeld quoted one of my field reports from Afghanistan in a press conference because I always asked why, and I would include way more than the average details. That's kind of cool. But you see, here's the thing. In a free society, a society that values independent thinking and free market principles where competition is key, in such a free society, it is a must that we ask questions. When we fail to be inquisitive, to ask basic questions, then we have given up our ability to live free. There's a book that I've got posted on the Rightside Radio website. You can check it out, recommended reading list on the rightsideradio.org. It's called Escape from Camp 14. I've talked about it on the show before. It's an amazing book. It's one of the most impactful books I've ever read. It's the personal story of a North Korean man named Shin Dong-hyuk. And Shin is the only man who is known to have been born into a North Korean prison labor camp and then escaped to the West when he was a young man. One of the reviews of the book describes his story this way, and I quote it. "Shin was born in Camp 14, one of the most notorious in North Korea, the product of an occasionally allowed union of 2 inmates. He grew up without any knowledge of the outside world. He was a product of the camp culture where overworked and brutalized and underfed prisoners just struggled to stay alive. He witnessed a fellow student being beaten to death. He was badly burned over hot coals. He had a finger chopped off. He was lice-ridden. He was cold. He was nearly always hungry. He betrayed his mother and brother when they tried to escape in the vain hope of getting more food, and he felt no guilt because that was the world that was all about survival and not trusting anyone. He knew nothing of human rights. He escaped merely because he was hungry. An inmate told him that he could eat cooked meat if he could get to China, although he had little notion about where China even was. His escape at the age of 24 was nothing less than miraculous, but then he had to somehow reach China, where he earned a living while hiding from the authorities, and by good luck, he made it to South Korea and eventually to the U.S. Shin became a human rights advocate. Moreover, his life in America, though, has not been easy. As with most refugees from North Korea, he bears the emotional scars that make any kind of normal adjustment extremely difficult. Here's me talking again. You see, Shin grew up in a place where questions were not allowed. You were to do what you were told at a moment's notice, without question, even to the extent in Shin's case where he turned in his own parents and felt no remorse about it because that's just the way things were. He literally escaped only because he was so hungry he didn't know what else to do after 24 years of living like this. You see, Shin grew up in a society where to question was to risk life and limb. I cannot fathom what it must have been like to have no concept of a right to independent thought. In his case, if the representative who was speaking to him of the dear leader told you to do something, your lot in life was to do it without question, without a single question. But not here, not in America, where it's been established that we not only have a right to question, we also have a right to share those ideas should we choose to do so. Now, are there laws? Certainly. But even then, we have a right to seek redress against our own government if, in fact, the laws or the application of the laws appears to be unjust. What about military service? Don't good soldiers follow orders? Yes, they do. Good order and discipline comes in part from a faithful adherence to lawful orders. Battles are won because soldiers follow orders. But they are not mindless drones in America. I've often heard, and I've seen it to be true, that unlike any other nation in the world, a U.S. service member needs to be told why something is happening as much as what needs to happen. See, we're a free society, and we are kept and made so by free-minded men and women who have dared to question. That's why Biden's vaccine mandates failed so miserably, because he tried to take away the right to question and to choose, the right to have another thought. That's why parents become so emboldened when they find out that woke ideology is being foisted on their kids in public school classrooms across America, because it evidences an attempt of a governmental entity to subordinate the thoughts and cares and beliefs of their own household. That's why people bristled when the government during the pandemic chose to declare some businesses essential and others non essential, because it indicates a bureaucratic view that, some forms of making a living are somehow valued more than others. You see, this is a free society, and we are free thinkers, and we question authority. And like I said earlier, it does not mean that by questioning authority that we're bucking authority. It means that we know that in a free society, that freedom of thought and the freedom to question are inherently valuable. So tell us what's what, that's fine. But be prepared to back it up with a reasonable, here's why. Because in America, we question. This is not North Korea. It never will be. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. Well, there you have it. And I say all that to say the things that we're seeing right now with liberals literally trying to change society on a daily basis, we have to ask the questions. We have to. This show exists in part to make sure that you have everything it takes to go out and ask the questions and be able to respond to the answers you're given. I wouldn't be here every day wasting my time if all I wanted to do was hear myself talk. I want you guys to know that you've got a right to have questions and to have them answered. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. We'll be right back.
Constitutional rights are sacred and should not be overlooked or trampled.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, covering all of North Alabama, solid, conservative, and just plain right. So got a caller on the line. Yeah, Steve from Tennessee is on line one. Steve, how you doing today, man?
Hey, Phil, I'm doing good, man. You sparked two thoughts in my mind. Today is election day in Huntsville.
Yeah.
And although I'm not a Huntsvillian anymore, I was talking to a fellow down there the other day, and I said, you got school board votes coming up or election coming up. Who you going to vote for? And he just said, I don't have any kids. And I said, I almost unloaded on him. Man, I had a hard time with that one. I stopped for a second. I said, look, man, that attitude, nothing personal, but that attitude is exactly why we're raising idiots. I said, you've got to make sure that the people that ask questions, the people like you're talking about, get on that school board and ask questions. You need to educate yourself and take a vested interest in all these other kids, whether they're your kids or not, because they're all going to grow up to be idiots if we don't help them. The second thing I wanted to say was, you're talking about your granddaddy teaching you to throw horseshoes.
Yeah.
My great uncle that was in World War I was missing two fingers on his left hand from the war.
Wow.
Tough as a pine knot, kind of short, built like a fire plug. Uncle D taught me to shoot a rifle, and I could never get the vision of his hand missing those fingers out of my mind. But I want to tell you something. That little old man from Piedmont, Alabama could shoot.
Yeah.
And he knew how, and he knew why. And so I'm just saying, sometimes old folks make an impression, and you just brought back that memory when you talked about your granddaddy and the horseshoe.
That's awesome, man.
I'll let it go, but everybody needs to go vote. That's really what they need to do, and they've got till 7 o'clock to do it.
Oh, it's awesome. Steve from Tennessee, you are the man. Thank you, brother.
Not really. I just get by. You have a good one.
You too, bud. That man, wow, what a great call. I love the idea that my monologue kicked in two thoughts, not just one. That's good stuff. But he is so right. First of all, love the fact that his uncle taught him to shoot. Great uncle taught him to shoot. World War I. But yeah, my granddaddy, by the way, the one who taught me to throw horseshoes, who taught me a lot of other things, taught me how to fish, taught me some things about life, to be honest. Yeah, he was a retired general, World War II veteran, served through Korea and Vietnam. His last major tour, aside from being the commanding general at Redstone Arsenal, he was the Corps Logistics Commander at Quy Nhon under Westmoreland in Vietnam. I think in roughly 1970. But yeah. Anyway, love that, and thanks for sharing that, Steve. But the other point he made about voting. So y'all, listen, it's all over the place. There are municipal ballots, being cast today, all over Alabama. So we've got it right here in Etowah County. The city of Gadsden's mayoral elections are up. I'm just going to tell you too, it's a big deal. It's a big deal because you've seen more than ever in recent years. You've seen the impact that both school boards and mayoral offices can have on society. I mean, look at what's happened during COVID. For the love. I mean, you've got mayors who chose to buck authority and say, tell me why I got to mask people up. Tell me why I got to shut businesses down. Then you had some who just rolled over and made it worse. And then you got some who are like, well, we think our school board needs to mask up even more. And 2-year-olds need. Huntsville City School Board was like masking kids that were 2 years old and up. Well, we got a race right now for mayor in Gadsden where we've been dealing with just a lack of leadership in the city of Gadsden. Gadsden, by the way, Etowah County is actually the most populous county in the entire 4th Congressional District. And the leadership in the hub of that county, the city of Gadsden, has been awful, has been abysmal. And we've been going through all kinds of stuff because of it. Well, they got a mayoral election today, and they got the former Democrat minority of the state house, Craig Ford, running for mayor, and which, I'll just be honest with you, I think that'd be one of the worst things that could ever happen around here. That's all I'll say about that. But nonetheless, if you're in a city today that has a voting, has the ballot, what am I trying to say? The polls are open. Thank you very much. The polls are open in your city today. Go vote. If you're not sure to vote, call somebody you trust, ask them what they're going to do. But if you got school board and mayor's offices and you choose not to do anything, you're stuck with whatever you get. You have no right to complain after that. All right. There's my soapbox. By golly. Well, listen, we're going to be breaking down. We're going to go into number one of the Triple Dipper here in just a minute. And then top of the hour, we're going to be talking to Will Blakely, a reporter at 1819 News, who wrote a great piece, one of the most detailed pieces I've seen yet, on this ESG scoring that is being just literally just thrust upon our financial world. I mean, where did this come from? Well, it's, you know, it almost sounds like I'm some kind of conspiracy theorist to say it, but I'm not. It's the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, and, certain key super banks and super investment portfolio managers like BlackRock and JP Morgan Chase. And it's gotten now to the point that even the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, is beginning to get involved. It's so bad now that our own Attorney General, Steve Marshall, recently joined in with, I think it was 23 other Attorney Generals, writing to the president asking him to remove the SEC's authority to make certain decisions because of the things they're doing with this ESG stuff. Literally saying, it's not about profits. We're not about making profits. We don't care about shareholder profits. We care about how diverse are you. We care about things like, are you investing in environmental and green energy policies? Do you care for critical race theory? And do you believe that the world is systemically racist around you? If you do all those things, if you'll be a woke corporation, you get a high ESG score. Look it up. I'm not kidding you. Go just type in whatever major corporation you want to think of, Delta Airlines, Coca-Cola, Regions Bank, whatever. Type in like Regions Bank ESG score. You'll find it because they promote it now because they have to. And it has nothing to do with whether they're returning a profit for you or their shareholders. Whew. This is big doings, y'all. I'm saying pay attention. This is the man behind the curtain. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We got a whole lot more where that came from. We'll be right back. And we're back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, spanning south of Birmingham to north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, over to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and Mississippi, just thrown in for good measure. Solid conservative, just plain right. Boomer, did you have a call a minute ago? I was working on some notes. What was that?
Yeah, we had a call, and they just called in and to say, hey, Steve was completely right. When their kids graduate from high school after they're 18, they're going to be voting, and we're going to be stuck with what they're voting. So we got to teach them.
That's a great point. Yeah, it's a great point.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so go elect the right school board members today, so the curriculum in your schools is not filled up with wokeness, because otherwise those kids graduate and they vote.
Yep. Absolutely.
Which they have a right to do, but we want to
Correct.
raise them up right. So, okay.
Don't want to fill their minds with junk.
No. All right. Good stuff, man. All right, listen, I'm jumping into number one of the Triple Dipper. I'm just jumping in feet first, man. So ESG, what is that? If you have not heard of this and you have anything at all set aside for retirement, other than just a pure government pension, like a what do they call that? A fixed amount pension, a fixed rate pension. I forget. Anyway, the term I've forgotten. It escapes me. If you have a portfolio of some type, if you invest, if you have a 401k, if you have a state plan that is based on investments that the state fund manager has to maintain, if you have a privately owned fund, bottom line is if you're in the market, you need to pay attention to this. For that matter, though, maybe you work for a company, and that company is facing some of the same things we're about to talk about. Here's the latest ESG scoring. Environmental, social responsibility, and governance, ES&G. Environmental, social, and governance. What this basically means is, for years it has always been the standard, that if you wanted to purchase shares on the market in a company, you did so because your intent was that they would profit, that you would receive a return on your investment. ROI. We talk about ROI all the time in the business world. What's the ROI here? What's the return on the investment? Well, you don't invest in something so that you can just literally say, well, I hope I lose money, or I hope I break even. I'm going to invest my hard-earned dollars with the intent of breaking even. People invest for the purposes of developing profit, and people earn pensions managed by large, hedge fund managers and others, because their intent is that they are setting aside part of their income, contributing to their own plan, with a employers-based contribution added on top of that then gives them something for their later years. Wouldn't you like to know the plan actually grew? That's the purpose of it, right? Here's the deal. ESG scoring has become a norm, not just a thing that's on the horizon. It's a norm. And what has happened is these major liberal hedge fund managers and major lenders, in conjunction with the World Economic Forum, and in conjunction with a study group put together by the United Nations, they came up with what they call the ESG. And this is not, I'm not giving you something that's hiding in the background and I'm bringing it to the surface for you. It may be in the background to you, but it's not in the background in the world. And I can tell you right now, every major corporation right now is facing this. Here's what happens. They can't get loans if their ESG scores aren't high enough. They can't get their business to have their stock purchased on the market to be held by these hedge fund managers as part of the overall portfolio because they don't have a high enough ESG score. How do you get an ESG score? Well, you might wonder what ESG really means. Environmental? Well, environmental is simply how into the Green New Deal are you, corporation? How into, on the social side, are you into diversity, equity, and inclusion? And then when it comes to liberal policies in government, things like, where do you stand on things like the fact that the state of Florida said don't teach sexuality to children in schools, or the state of Alabama has an anti-abortion law. How do you stand on those issues, corporation? Do you speak out? Because if you're not speaking out in the liberal sense, well, guess what? Your score goes down. But who makes the ESG score? Well, there's 2 or 3 major organizations out there that provide the ESG score that the industry then relies on. And yet they are very subjective, and they don't always follow the same deal. They have their own agendas. And so they publish an ESG score. And by the way, go look it up. If you have your phones right now and you want to check it, you can. If you're at a computer, just type in ESG score. The search engine will flood with where they are. And then just pick one. In fact, if you're listening to me right now and you work for a major corporation, or for that matter, if you're a government contractor, you're contracted to a major corporation, just check it out. ESG score, pick one. General Dynamics. ESG score, pick one. Delta Airlines. ESG score, pick one. Coca-Cola. ESG score, Regions Bank. You looking at it, Boomer? I see you over there typing.
Oh, yeah. You told me to look. I'm listening, so I'm looking it up.
So just, what'd you pick? What'd you type in?
I typed in McDonald's and Starbucks.
And did you get ESG scores?
I did.
Oh, yeah.
I got the ESG score 24.8. And
Wow.
then, something like a 198 out of 448, 200 out of 448. Yeah. It's all over the place.
And are they actually on their websites? Are they posted from their websites?
This was just on the Google. I can go to their website. Hold on one second.
Yeah, I guarantee if you type in since they publish those, if you type it in McDonald's ESG score and you came up with a McDonald's.com website, you'll find that they actually post them on their website to notify the world that they are indeed one of the woke corporations that believes in ESG scoring. Well, they don't always believe in it. Sometimes they're held captive by it. They don't do it, they can't get the loan. They don't do it, they can't get involved in these other portfolios that will buy their stock or hold their stock. Oh gosh, what is that one you just pulled up, man? Who's that?
Starbucks. And it is.
Oh.
They pulled up their like a whole PDF of their ESG.
They got their whole
score.
PDF portfolio.
Yeah.
All right. So here's the deal, folks. First of all, it's real. It's there. It's not hiding in the background. It's legit. Well, ESG criteria means that profit is now secondary. Because it used to be, if a hedge fund manager wanted your portfolio, you to be added to their portfolio, is because you were considered a profitable venture. Used to be if you were a company that was out there and you had shareholders. Well, shareholders own stock. They want to know they got a return on their investment. Used to be the main concern was, are we returning the investment our shareholders expect, or will they hold us accountable? Nowadays, that is now secondary. Capitalism by the wayside, woke investing is what's most important. And these businesses are not able to survive in the world of corporate finance unless they get an ESG score that puts them on the right level to then be able to obtain a loan. And Republicans and state governments are pushing back. You know why? Because too many of our state retirement funds are now invested in portfolios that maintain ESG scoring, which means that public dollars for public pensions are going into funds that don't care about profit. They care about how woke they are. And if that happens, it means that we run the risk of not having our state employees have a good retirement return when the day comes. And if you're in a state like Alabama and it doesn't make a certain, investment return, like Alabama has a guaranteed 8%. Woo! Wouldn't you like to know everything you invested had an 8% return? Alabama has a guaranteed 8%. If they're not hitting the mark, guess what happens? The legislature has to upfund the account with tax dollars. So every time the RSA finds itself falling below the 8% threshold, the legislature has to come in and plus it up. And we've been plussing it up to like the tune of $900 million to $1 billion many times during the last 10 years. Can you imagine if we get stuck into a situation where profitability is really not our concern? It's ESG scoring. How environmentally aware are we? Do we provide advertising that highlights the LGBTQ agenda? Are we out there literally saying that legislatures around the states should not pass laws that revoke CRT in our classrooms? If that's the desire, then profit is not what stocks are for. If that's the desire, then it means that we are literally in a position where we cannot expect a good return on our investment. So here's the thing. Just so as you know, The liberals do not get that. I mean, I've got an article here from Slate. You went to Slate, Phil? Yeah, I did. You got to know what the other side's saying sometimes. Slate's got an article dated June 23rd of this year. The Republican war on woke capitalism is really just a war on capitalism. I don't think they understand capitalism. ESG investors, it says, worry that unchecked climate change is a threat to human existence. See, there's an admission right there. If they're investing in ESG corporations, it's because they're more concerned about climate change. I got news, folks. The majority of people that buy a share of stock just want to know they're going to get their money back plus. They're not buying the share of stock because I want to make sure that if you want to do that, go donate to a charity. When you donate to, I don't know, pick one, the Sierra Club. They're out there fighting for your green energy policies, right? Well, the Sierra Club, you don't expect a return on your investment. They're out there doing the cause. That's why you have these NGOs. They're doing the cause. But on ESG, now the corporations have to do the cause, or they get threatened with their own livelihood. And it says in the article here from Slate, the GOP appears to worry that unchecked ESG investors are a threat to Republican existence. But then it does caveat by saying both sides are right. What? Okay. Skipping down in the article. For all the GOP fretting over the left-wing cancel culture, the Republican Party, is working very hard to cancel ESG. Well, of course we are. ESG is a threat to the American free market economy. ESG is a threat to capitalism. And then they go on to excoriate Mike Pence. A typical example comes from former Vice President Mike Pence, who wrote a May 26 op-ed in the Wall Street Journal titled, Republicans Can Stop ESG Political Bias, full of right-wing fervor. He called ESG a pernicious strategy from the woke left, including an unelected cabal of bureaucrats. That's because it's what it is. It's an unelected cabal of bureaucrats. And he goes on to say he compared ESG ratings to something from the Chinese Communist Party. Well, that's because the Chinese Communist Party invented this concept. Yes. What are you saying, Phil? I'm saying that the Chinese Communist Party has what they call their social scoring. In China, you cannot buy or sell unless you are socially scoring correctly. That's what this is. They are rating companies based upon a notion of social scoring. And by doing so, they are limiting the ability of the market to move in a free market capacity. And they are limiting the ability, even of state retirement funds, to have a good return on their investment because profit falls secondary to wokeness. And this is no small thing. This is everywhere. Boomer, take us to a break, brother. We're going to go and do a little more of this right after the break. And then coming up top of the hour, the guy who just wrote one of the best articles I've seen on it, right here at our own Alabama 1819 News, Will Blakely. His article, ESG criteria is used for some of Alabama's best-known brand names, and they call it important and a factor. Yep, right here in Alabama. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Let's face it, 1819 News is here because the other guys aren't doing their job.
All right, we're back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, I'm talking right now in number one of the Triple Dipper about woke investing in Alabama. And folks, we got it going on here. I'll let Will Blakely sort of unpack some of that with us before I get into his really, really good article. By the way, if you want to see one of the best write-ups on this, I mean, literally, that I've seen, because this is the second or third time in the last year and a half that I've done a feature on the Triple Dipper about ESG. It's something we cannot be oblivious to. You can't. I mean, even if you're just one of those good, solid, meat and potatoes folks who goes to work and goes home, but you got a retirement plan out there, you need to know this impacts you. This is not that thing that only the corporate, boardrooms care about. This is for all of us, because what it does is it drives our economy. It literally changes the ability. It's also, some say that this is actually driving up energy costs, because it's forcing corporations to get away from productive energy and trying to go to the allegedly sustainable but yet unsustainable green energy policies that we're not quite ready yet for, because the market can't sustain those. If you're not on board with the Green New Deal and the government subsidization of the wind and solar and battery-powered industry out there, then you're a corporation whose ESG scores might go down. And yet it's also very subjective, because like one of the classics is that Tesla, one of the world's most prolific manufacturers of battery-powered vehicles, okay, they must have a high ESG score. No, they were dropped soon after the whole Elon Musk effort to purchase Twitter. But yet, major oil and gas manufacturers still have ESG scores because, I don't know, they're planting trees on the side or something. Who knows? But that guy from Slate does not get it. And I'm looking here, and I'm pointing out in the article, I highlighted so much here. They even go on to talk about Pence's performative outrage. Sounds like something from a far-right radio program. That's me. And they even talk about the fact that host Glenn Beck has promoted false conspiracy theories involving hedge fund manager George Soros and former President Barack Obama. Okay, when you say it's false to talk negatively about George Soros and Barack Obama, you have just discontinued any opportunity to be considered relevant by me. But nonetheless, I'm reading you what they say. And they go on to say, now, some have criticized ESG for encouraging companies to engage in greenwashing, like making false and exaggerated claims about their ESG practices. You think? Lie to survive is what it sounds like. You can't prove the numbers. And see, when you get return on investment for shareholders by profitability, guess what? It's numbers. Numbers don't lie. But when you rely on an ESG score, you don't have to do the numbers thing anymore. You can say, just want y'all to know we planted a whole lot of trees. ESG score goes up. I just want y'all to know that we called our legislatures and encouraged them to label that bill in Florida the Don't Say Gay bill. Oh, ESG score goes up. They call it greenwashing. Well, listen, just so you know, Alabama is one of the states pushing back, and I'm proud to say it. Once again, Steve Marshall is literally taking the fight on liberal issues. Story here off a website called eenews.net. I'm not really familiar with them. I found this, and it's the only source I could find that told me that Alabama's Attorney General has engaged the topic. It's dated 3 days ago, so this is 5 days ago. Red states decry the woke left SEC proposal for ESG investing. Get this. West Virginia Attorney General Patrick Morrisey has signaled that he plans to take a page from his recent Supreme Court climate win to challenge the Securities and Exchange Commission's proposed rules for funds that are marketed as socially and environmentally responsible. Here's the bottom line. The SEC is literally making a proposal that would require firms to prove that their investments purport to be green or socially aware. And that's from the Climate Wire. That was listed in Climate Wire on May 26th. In formal comments filed yesterday with the SEC, 21 Republican state legal officers, those attorney generals, led by Morrisey, argued that the agency is trying to transform itself from the federal overseer of securities into the regulator of broad social ills. You see, they've forgotten their place. The role of a corporate boardroom is to make sure that the corporation is profitable, sustainable, and is able to produce whatever widget or service that corporation was designed to produce. Period. You can do good things on the side if you want to. Support the good causes. Give money to the charities and the NGOs. I get it. But the idea that you now have to have an ESG score is not what we were designed to do. Well, West Virginia was joined in this letter by attorneys generals in multiple states, including Alabama. The quote in the letter says, "The SEC no longer protects investors from mere fraud," the attorney generals write. "Now it has assumed responsibility for fighting climate change and social ills. It wishes to use mandatory disclosure to pressure companies and investors to change their behavior." That is not good. All right, folks, listen. My buddy Will Blakely, you can find that article I started to say earlier at 1819news.com, but he's the author of it. He did the investigating. He wrote up the piece, and he'll be on the show with us in a few minutes. Y'all stay tuned. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. We'll be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here in the Rightside studio, hour number 2, local, state, national. We cover down on all the issues, man, and we do it solid, conservative, and just plain right. Hey, going to the phones now with Will Blakely. He's a reporter at 1819 News. And Will's been on the show before. He writes good stuff, but this morning he wrote a piece that really caught my attention. You know, I've done ESG as one of my topics on the Triple Dipper on the show probably 3, maybe this is the 4th time in the last year and a half. But this is one of the best articles I've ever read on it. So prolific, and it also relates directly to Alabama. So without further ado, let me just bring on Will Blakely. Will, how you doing today?
Good, Phil. How are you? I appreciate all that.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Well, I appreciate your work. I mean, this was solid. I mean, if you've never heard of ESG before, you'll get an understanding of it. If you wonder if it impacts your life in Alabama, you get an understanding of it. I mean, this was news. So thank you for that. But what got you going on this? What sparked your attention to it?
Well, I had heard of ESGs before, and then I was actually working on another piece that didn't really, nothing really came of it, but it kind of required me to look at some of Alabama's largest businesses. And one thing, whenever I go on their website, I noticed I kept seeing sustainability reports or ESG reports, which they can mean different things. Most of the time, they mean the same thing. If you click on it, they'll be the same sort of ordeal. And, I had heard of ESGs, like I said, and I was like, well, I knew there was controversy around it, and I decided to just dig deeper and ask some people what they thought about it, ask the companies themselves why they had it and who it was designed to appeal to.
Well, it's amazing to me that this has become so prolific. I mean, what's funny is everybody's heard of it, and yet a lot of folks haven't heard of it. Does that make sense? It's like in the background, but you ask anybody in any boardroom in America right now, they probably know and they have to deal with it.
Yeah, and one thing, talking to these, I talked to Michael Rechtenwald and Dan Sutter. Dan's in the Johnson Center in Troy, and Michael Rechtenwald wrote a number of books that have to deal with similar topics, and he's working on a book that has a lot to do with the Great Reset and ESG reporting right now. And one thing you realize is that this thing's been going on for a long time, but it's really now starting to get to this big scale where these companies would have, when it first started, they would have small funds where if you wanted to invest your money in an ESG fund, you could. And now some of these large companies like BlackRock are saying, okay, we're going to use ESG factors for everything.
For everything, right. And it also impacts businesses' ability, like major corporations. They can't go to certain banks and get the kind of loans they need at their corporate level unless they have an ESG score, meaning if they don't participate, if they don't toe the line, their own credit gets risk.
Yeah, and it's we sit here in Alabama, more conservative states, and we wonder, well, why are these businesses in Alabama why do they use the same language that these left-wing politicians are using? And I don't know if I can say that this is all of the reason why, but it seems to be part of it.
Well, I agree, and so let's talk about Alabama's connections to this, because you quickly found that some of the major Alabama-based corporations that we all see in our everyday life participate in this. And we'll talk about the retirement systems Alabama in a minute, but talk to me about corporations first. Who'd you find that literally has they advertise their ESG scores on their websites right now?
So one of the things is some of them also, they'll say they have sustainability reports, like I said, but they effectively mean the same thing. So the companies that I found, Alabama Power's got a sustainability report, but it talks about all the same things as the ESG report. Wood, Regions Bank, Vulcan Materials, and Compass Health, and even some of the universities. As an Auburn grad, I hate to say it, but Auburn's got one.
Wow. Why would a state-funded university feel like it has to put an ESG score out there? Do you know?
I have no idea, and they're not necessarily putting their score out there. They just have some sort of document to outline what they're doing in those regards. So they're reporting it, and then these large, these certain companies will give them scores, and they'll be placed on different indexes that rank them.
Wow.
In a way.
Well, so you reached out to, who was it, Regions, I think, and what kind of response did you get?
I reached out to all the companies that I just stated. I only heard back from Alabama Power and Regions. They both gave me a response, and I tried to, with Regions, I tried to clarify a couple things, and they basically just declined to comment any further. They refused to respond. So, and it's basic stuff. It never went into any detail. A lot of vague answers. I just, as a reporter, a lot of times when people give me answers, I try to ask for definitions, and I try to ask for people to clarify things because that's my job. I never want to express what someone's trying to say in an incorrect way. And so I wanted to give them that opportunity, but that was the only statement that they would give me.
So they issued you a concise statement, and they declined to comment further at that point, I guess. All right. Well, so one of the concerns that a lot of state attorney generals have, and by the way, I was texting with you before the show and just pointed out that I just stumbled across, and it was like in a obscure article in a communications or electronics news forum, that Attorney General Steve Marshall just recently sent a letter to the president on behalf, along with 19 other attorney generals, asking for them for the president to stop the SEC of all things from enforcing ESG policies. So we got our own AG apparently involved, but yet we've also got our retirement systems of Alabama, where all of our state employees have their retirement plans. Talk to me about RSA's views on ESG, and do we have to worry about that as a state right now?
So that's another thing that wasn't exactly clear. Like I said, what I encounter as a reporter a lot, especially from bureaucracies and politicians, usually is a lot of ambiguity. They say words, but the words don't really mean anything. And when I try to clarify, sometimes they don't like that. And so with retirement systems, they gave me a one-word statement. They said that it was they didn't have an ESG policy, but ESG criteria are still an important and a factor in selecting investments. So, of course, my follow-up question was that, does the retirement system of Alabama use ESG scoring in any way to determine which investments they make with the people of Alabama's money?
That's a reasonable question.
They basically just, I asked for a yes or no question, and they pretty much just restated the previous answer and declined to comment any further.
What that basically sounds like, and I'll go ahead and interpolate, since I know that you being a reporter, 1819 is good at just calling balls and strikes. I'm the interpreter over here. I'll just tell you what that tells me is that they may not have a formal written policy that says here's what we're going to do, but it's what they do. They're trying to stay in good with the ESG folks, people like BlackRock who might manage part of the portfolio. Now, you've got other states, though, like West Virginia, just finished saying recently, we're not doing that stuff anymore. And there are states that are proposing legislation to ban the use of ESG scores in the management of state portfolios. So have you talked to any legislators at all about this?
I have not. One thing that came up, though, you mentioned West Virginia, that came up. Ron DeSantis also has proposed legislation down in Florida to stop the state from using ESG in its investments.
Well, of course he has. Just,
Yeah.
well, I don't think we're going to see the end of this, and I hope that your reporting is able to, pick up more threads and make this even a series if at all possible. But your initial story, Will, for folks to find it on 1819news.com, it's one of the top stories there out there today. But this is thorough, brother, and there's still even a whole lot more out there. So thank you for your work on this.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you.
All right. Will Blakely, 1819 News. Y'all come back on soon sometime. We'll have you back on. But thanks, Will. All right. Listen, folks, I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to take a break, but when we come right back, I'll wrap this section up. But you just please understand, this is legit. This is real. And it ain't good. But it's happening left and right now. There's a reason why Republican attorney generals and Republican state legislatures around the nation are bucking this, because they recognize that what it is, it's nothing more than an opportunity to promote progressive liberalism without having to be an elected official. They can do it in the background by thrusting it into companies and mandating certain behaviors, but that streamlines the market in different directions than profitability. We don't need that. We need to know that our state pensions and other funds, for that matter, are profitable and have a return on investment that we can work with. Ugh. I mean, how hard is that? Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back.
Constitutional rights are sacred and should not be overlooked or trampled on. The Alabama Senate.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Man, we are covering up this state, making it cool to be a conservative. So listen, I'm going to wrap this section up. ESG. Just keep that acronym in your mind, all right? ESG, environmental, social, and governance. It's the new woke means of basically keeping corporate America in line, because they know that if corporate America is kept in line, that America winds up getting kept in line, because corporate America has the jobs. And corporate America, oh, by the way, also creates the economic stream under which we all live. And if they can keep corporate America in line, then corporate America will run more ads during the Super Bowl that look like the whole world's gone woke, when you know you're looking at it going, that does not match my world. I mean, how many times have we seen, have you wondered why in recent years you've been seeing wokeism coming from corporate America? Like, okay, how about, I actually switched away from using the razor that I was using. I think it was it Schick or Gillette? Now that I've said that, I better check and see. Came out with a commercial with, the dad teaching the transgender how to shave with the closest possible razor so he would look more like a girl. And that was a commercial on TV, and I'm like, what the heck? That is not real. That is such a minuscule part of the world's population. Why was that necessary? Well, I guarantee you it's for an ESG score. Did you find the commercial, Boomer? Which one was it, Gillette or Schick? Gillette. It was Gillette. All right, it was Gillette. Or how about this? Coca-Cola goes out there and starts speaking out against voter identification laws in Georgia. Why would they get involved? ESG score, governance, that's the G. Or what about this? Disney going full on about this whole situation with, keeping sexuality out of kindergartners' classrooms in Florida. Why would they do that? ESG, that's the social. It's on and on and on. And it's right now, it's because, first of all, they don't know when to say no. They don't have the chutzpah to say no. They don't recognize, by the way, that the world will rush to their aid. I mean, there's an entire world of people out there hungry for more people like the CEO of Goya Foods, who just says, you know what, forget y'all. I'm not doing this. And and then what happens? His sales go up. How about when Chick-fil-A just said, we don't believe in same-sex marriage. Boom, sales went up. We're going to have a boycott of Chick-fil-A. No, by God, you're not. I want more chicken nuggets. And then, chicken minis are selling out like you can't believe. And then they got to do the double drive-through at Chick-fil-A just to make it all. But by the way, the drive-through at Chick-fil-A is amazing. I mean, I heard that during the pandemic, they were actually calling Chick-fil-A managers to come help with the drive-throughs for testing sites. That's that's pretty epic. But okay, two more articles for you. This one I pulled off of freebeacon.com. What a great name. Freebeacon.com. State attorney generals take aim at the $10 trillion investment giant over woke investments. So it's BlackRock again. It says a coalition of 19 Republican attorneys general say BlackRock CEO Larry Fink prioritizes left-wing political initiatives over shareholder returns and is jeopardizing the retirement of middle-class workers with pensions. It's what I've been saying. And it goes on to say critics of ESG say the policies are often arbitrary and they can even hurt a company's bottom line. Why would you do this, by the way? Why would you do this, board of directors? Why would you do this, president and CEO? Why would you say, you know what? It's going to hurt profitability, but I guess we better do it. I got a good ESG score. Yeah, but you went bankrupt. Yeah, but I got a good ESG score. Yeah, but your profit margins went in the tank. Yeah, but I got a good ESG score. Okay. Well, BlackRock manages $10 trillion in assets. And the AGs assert that when BlackRock engages with companies over climate practices, that it actually violates state laws about maximizing financial returns. And so states are pushing back, and rightfully so, especially when it comes to things like public dollars being invested in a state retirement plan. And the ESG policies are driving the train on how we invest. No. I want the maximum return for our state employees. I want to know that our teachers and our state employees, I want to know those state troopers who vest in the system, and those teachers who spent their 20 years, I want to know they all have the best possible retirement they can get. And not because we had to keep upfunding it from the legislature to make up the difference lost in a bad market. I want to know that it was because of good investment practices at the RSA. Retirement Systems of Alabama. If you are, by the way, in the retirement system of Alabama, you need to ask the question, are you using ESG scores? And if so, please stop. Call your legislature and tell them, you need something passed at the state level that counters this movement towards ESG. Great article on the Heartland. Heartland Institute wrote a piece in June of this year, June 2nd. And they've been working against this thing for a while. And it's a pushing back on what is often referred to as the Great Reset, which includes a lot of ESG pushes. And they point out that 16 state governors, I don't believe Alabama's Governor Ivey was one of them, but the 16 state governors recently sent a letter to President Biden requesting that he withdraw the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission's proposal that's going to force publicly traded companies to account for their data in climate change and greenhouse gas emissions. That's not what they're there for. If they're there to make a soft drink, then they shouldn't have to have an ESG score on whether they support Biden's green energy initiatives. Even Representative Chip Roy and 7 other members of the U.S. House of Representatives have tried to get the TSP, the thrift savings plan that our federal employees use, out of ESG. I mean, there's actual legislation being proposed. But yeah, we got to do it. Well, I know we got a break coming. I don't hear any music yet, Boomer, but oh, there it is. I can sense it. I can feel it in the wind. All right, listen, folks. ESG, it's real and it matters. Ask about it. Ask your corporations. Check out your corporation's websites. Check out your state plans. Let's not be in ESG mode. It's about profitability. All right, folks, listen, we're going to switch to number 2 on the Triple Dipper, the need for speed. When we get back, Right Side Radio, Phil Williams. Y'all stay tuned. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. That's right. We were spanning south of Birmingham, north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa over to Gadsden, parts of those neighboring states of Mississippi, Georgia, Tennessee, just thrown in just for good measure. All right, listen. I am going to switch gears. We are in number 2 of the Triple Dipper, and this one's more fun. I kind of touched on this, I guess it's been, 2 months ago? But I'm calling this section The Need for Speed. How many? Okay, so those of y'all in my generation, you remember Top Gun 1, all right? The first. And there's that scene when Goose and Maverick are talking, and I don't remember which one of them said it first, but it was, I feel the need. They both said, the need for speed. I mean, that movie, I still remember. So, Boomer, 1986.
Oh, I know Top Gun.
I'm sure you do. But so 1986, huge year for me. 1986, married my sweet wife of 36 years. But it was also the year I also went to Army Airborne School to be a paratrooper.
Wow.
I remember driving. So I remember in August of 86, driving to Airborne School, listening to Kenny Loggins' Danger Zone, like blaring, because I am headed off to be a paratrooper. To me, that was the Army version of Top Gun. I was going in, man.
Okay.
So, all right. So remember, you've seen Top Gun 1
Yes.
multiple times.
Multiple times.
Okay.
Staple.
It is. It's like I would question your manhood if you'd not seen it.
I understand. I don't have anything else to say. I get it.
But you've also seen Top Gun Maverick.
Yes, I have.
At least how many times?
Twice.
Twice?
Yes,
Okay.
I've been trying to go a third time.
All right, so I went to see it, and Charlene's probably listening right now, and she'll probably say, yes, now that you reminded me, that is true. But she was out of town. I went to see it with a friend. But she is as much into war movies as I am. Like, so our first date, which we started dating in 1985, but our first date was Rambo, and it was her idea. Yeah. Like our dog, you ever see our dog Ranger? You remember Ranger?
Yes.
All right, so big black Doberman named Ranger. She named him. All right, that's my wife. I'm just saying.
Nice.
Yeah, she looks like she's all sweet and kind of demure. Oh, listen, there's a side to her that'll jack you up, man. But she's not yet seen Top Gun Maverick.
Okay, I'm going to make a confession. My wife has not either. And she wanted to, and I told her I was going to watch it with her, and I just couldn't wait because she kept putting it off, so I just went.
So, oh, really?
Twice.
Yeah. So
I tried to get her both times.
So what's about to happen now is our wives are about to go one night and leave us at home. That's what's going to happen. All right, but here's the thing, folks. All right, so I'm switching gears. Number 2 on the Triple Dipper, the need for speed. First of all, understand this. Top Gun Maverick. This is worth talking about. And if you want to call in and tell me your favorite Top Gun story, I would love to hear it. But Top Gun Maverick is wearing it out still to this day. So here's a story that I pulled off of Variety. Variety.com, dated August 20th, 3 days ago. Top Gun Maverick takes down Avengers Infinity War as the 6th highest grossing movie in domestic box office history. History. In the history of history. So it says the milestones keep rolling in. After 13 weeks on the big screen, Top Gun Maverick has collected $683 million in North America alone. Enough to overtake Marvel's Avengers Infinity War, $678 million, as the 6th highest grossing movie in domestic box office history. It's about to enter the golden top 5, all right? It says, sure, Maverick had Tom Cruise, a box office hero in his own right, but moviegoers hadn't felt the need for speed in more than 30 years. The sequel to 1986's Top Gun was far from a guaranteed hit. It was going to require endurance, but it's not out of the question to make Top Gun Maverick, and they did it. All right, so here's the deal. It goes on to say the movie is likely to continue selling tickets in theaters, even though, and by the way, I didn't know this. I was planning this segment, and as I'm getting ready, I realized my very next article says that tonight is the night that that you can start getting Top Gun Maverick on pay-per-view, on-demand type of platforms. You can stream it at home. Boomer's over there shaking his head. Yes, you can. So didn't plan that. They are not paying me for an advertisement. This is not. Although, you know what? If they would
Yeah,
like to advertise on Right Side Radio, we'll take it. But yeah, Top Gun Maverick is like wearing it out. It says right now in this particular article from Variety, it set a Memorial Day weekend opening record with $160.5 million in its first weekend, Memorial Day. And it stayed in the top 5 for 10 weeks, dropped to 6th place for 1 week, and then went back up to number 2. And the guy who's writing the article says, this does not happen. But it also says that among the film's numerous records, Maverick is Tom Cruise's first movie to surpass $100 million a single weekend. It's the first one of his movies to ever reach $1 billion. $1 billion. $1 billion box office dollars, Boomer. It hadn't even gone to video or streaming yet.
That's insane.
Okay. I'm trying to get past all the zeros here.
There's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of zeros. But so what's the scoop, man? I mean, next article I got came from Forbes. Talks about the fact that it does come out today on August 23rd, today on on-demand services. But here's the deal. It also says that Top Gun Maverick saved movie theaters. I mean, look at what happened. Can you imagine being a movie theater owner during the pandemic? I mean, you were shut down for how long?
I mean, yeah, no one wanted to go, and they couldn't even open. I mean, I'm sure cities wouldn't even let them, right?
And even when they're allowed to open, people were scared to death because they've been so bludgeoned by fear,
right,
by the mainstream media and others that don't go out masking, social distancing. Then theaters are having to sanitize the seats, which, by the way, that ain't a bad idea.
No.
I used to work at a movie theater. They need to sanitize the seats. Yeah. Top Gun Maverick really did save movie theaters this summer. It says the film is a metaphor for how Hollywood so egregiously failed to create a new generation of Tom Cruise-level movie stars that Cruise had to get off the bench and save the industry. That's interesting. The subtext resonated in the summer of 2022, it says, when it seemed like theaters might only be safe for a Marvel or DC movie or a high-end horror flick. It says the film is nostalgia-tinged. It's a cash-in legacy sequel. Its success was partially driven by older and irregular moviegoers. I guess I'm an older and irregular moviegoer who hadn't been to theaters in years. It has, and so here's interesting, because every once in a while a movie comes along that takes on a life of its own, and it lumps this into those. It says it was a Passion of the Christ or American Sniper level event, which legged out to a near Force Awakens level success. It says at least some of that audience then showed up for regular movies like Elvis and others, like Where the Crawdad Sings and Bullet Train. So others are now seeing resurgence in movie attendance because people went to see this movie. And it literally says, Forbes says, Maverick's exceptional success supplied a giant lifeline to theaters and a cover for studios who were willfully delivering prior to that. Well, that's interesting. But here's the thing. Why? Why is it what it is? Well, I pointed out to you a minute ago that when I was in 1986, when I was just a puppy, just squealing, just sitting on the curb, just lost, and I saw Top Gun, and I was going to airborne school that summer, man. I put in for airborne school, I got a slot, and I went. I was freaking fired up. And part of that, I mean, literally, I guarantee you, part of that was just being stoked about, number one, I was entering into this military phase of my life. But number two, I was playing the soundtrack to Top Gun in my car while I drove there. I was fired up. But I pulled an article, believe it or not. LA Times, July 1986. Reaching back into archival history. Back when you could actually trust the LA Times to report. I know. It says, Top Gun is boosting service signups. So 1986, they were attributing Top Gun to a increase in people enlisting in the military. It says, regulations prohibit the Navy from promoting the hit movie Top Gun in its recruitment efforts, but the film extolling the service's best fighter jocks apparently has become a valuable tool, at least in some parts of the Southwest. Says when the film opened in May, that's 1986 May, recruiters in some cities even manned tables outside of movie houses during Top Gun premieres to answer questions from would-be flyboys emerging with a newfound need for speed from the F-14 warplane. Says there seems to have been a big rush And the recruiter being quoted here says, I have to attribute that to the movie. I've asked several of the individuals if they've seen the movie and if that's why they came down to talk to us, and they said yes. On the other end of the spectrum, we've also seen a general increase in young men who don't yet qualify for the program, and I have to attribute that to Top Gun also. In other words, kids who weren't even eligible yet for enlistment were stopping by going, hey, what do I got to do, and can I do anything early? I mean, it was having that kind of social effect. It's not the first movie to do that, though. Not the first. So the I guess the movie, would it be my grandfather's era, my father's era? I guess we're gonna have to. What year was this filmed? The movie Sands of Iwo Jima. You ever heard of that one, Boomer? I know you're a movie aficionado.
I actually have not.
Oh Lord.
I know, but I'm very interested in this.
Okay. Yeah, good answer.
I am. Because I am a movie lover.
That was you saying. I could see you now as a kid going, Dad, I didn't break the vase, but I'm very interested who would have done that.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm kind of mad my dad didn't introduce me to this film.
Sands of Iwo Jima, John Wayne. I believe it was filmed in 1947, if I'm not mistaken, immediately after World War II. So John Wayne did this twice. A movie that sparked general interest in the patriotic aspects of military service. The first one he did was 1947, The Sands of Iwo Jima, and this picked. I just googled this. It was 1949. I'm sorry, Sands of Iwo Jima. I pulled this one off of a movie blog site. And the guy said what I've heard before in other places. He says, Sands of Iwo Jima is the greatest recruiting film ever made by a branch of the military. In this particular case, it says the U.S. Marine Corps gave full cooperation to the film, even had script approval. The movie was filmed at Camp Pendleton, and the Corps provided ample equipment. The Marine Corps hierarchy knew that a successful film could help it survive potential demotion in the post-war years. Mission accomplished. In the process, it also bumped John Wayne up to a screen icon and the great American cinematic soldier and began his long run at the box office. It even goes down to the point that it plays the Marine Corps hymn over the credits at the end. And a voiceover informs us this will be a small unit movie of a heterogeneous squad trained by Sergeant Stryker, John Wayne. Well, listen, it's important. And by the way, he did it again with the Green Berets. So interest in special forces really kicked in after John Wayne made the movie The Green Berets. Love that movie. How many times have you seen that movie? I can't watch it enough. Boomer, I tell you what, tell Brian I got to take a break right now. We're at that point. But if he wants to hang on during the break or call right back after, we'll take his call, all right? In the meantime, take us to a break, brother. I'm going to come back. We're talking Top Gun, the need for speed. What are your memories of Top Gun? Did it inspire you? That's Top Gun 1 or Top Gun 2. But then I'm going to get into why is it a sellout movie? It's not just because it's a good movie, in my opinion. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and the need for speed. We'll be right back.
Let's face it, 1819 News is here because
All right, we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. I got a caller on. Is that Brian? Yeah, Brian's on line one. Brian from Huntsville. How you doing, bud?
Doing well, and I hope you are. And everybody is.
We're doing good, man.
I love the thing about Top Gun because one of the things that I got out of the first one was simply, if I remember correctly, that was the one where he was polishing buckles and everything and trying to put it up for inspection up above in the ceiling and pulling it down later.
You're thinking right now, you're thinking of Officer and a Gentleman. That's what that was.
Oh, I'm thinking of Officer and a Gentleman.
That was Officer and a Gentleman. Yeah, Richard
That
Gere.
was the one. I apologize. I messed it up because that was the one that I got my thing about guard mount before I made NCO, and I was doing the same thing after that to actually make the man, so to say, at guard mount, and that way I get the day off in reserve.
Nice.
And spend a little bit of money and get an extra day off every once in a while when you have to hit the guard.
Nice. Yeah, good stuff,
now,
man.
I got the wrong movie. Okay, you have a good one.
I see, bud. But it was still a great movie. I actually did a monologue on Officer and a Gentleman not long ago, and I need to go back and look and see what my point was in that. I think it was because, I know what it was. It was that whole section when Richard Gere's character was about to get kicked out of the Navy, and he said, I got nowhere else to go. And basically, he had no alternatives in life. But, that was a good flick, though, too, Brian. All right, so I'm back on Top Gun. I would love to hear if you've got a Top Gun story. I would love to hear it. And something Brian just said there, too, about the doing the belt buckles and going the extra mile so you could earn a day. So at Airborne School, I will never forget this. So now I got to tell a story. Now I'm into war stories, but I got to tell the story. So at Airborne School, and I'm sure by now it's easier because if you ask any paratrooper or any ranger when they went through this course, it's back when it was hard. That's the answer. Back when it was hard. So I went to Airborne School back when it was still hard. And we know you had to have inspections daily. So you stand there in inspection. What you did not want to do was get a deficiency in your inspection, a gig they called it, and they get sent to the gig pit. The gig pit was where special PT was done. So everybody did morning PT, physical training. And it was tough. It was airborne PT. I mean, you're sweating, you're rolling around the sawdust. They literally they would turn you into a crusted Twinkie. They would get you hot, wet, and sweaty, and then make you roll around in the sawdust pit because that's how you got it all stuck all over you. Anyway, yes, big fun. But the gig pit though was supposed to be where they smoked you like it was punishment. So those who passed inspection were like, "Whew, regular PT. Okay, I'll stick with that." The gig pit was where you didn't want to go. So every single day you got your boots. I mean, you had to have your boots inspected along with your uniform. Did you shave close enough? Yada, yada, yada. And so we would literally have to go through everything it took to get ourselves ready. There was this Marine behind me who was going to a force recon unit. And every single day he would pass inspection and then request the opportunity to go to the gig pit. Sergeant Airborne, Lieutenant so-and-so hereby requests permission to go to the gig pit. They knew that it was his way of being hua. They look at him and go, no. Just like that. No. And they move on to the next one. It just drove him crazy. You could see his face turning red. And finally, I'll never forget this. There was one day when, like towards the end, they're doing the inspection, and what they do is they would start, and they would look at you. They would start top to bottom, and they would go down your ears, your shaving, your uniform, yada yada. They come all the way down. He had taken his boots and gotten whiteout and wrote the words "gig pit" on the toes of his boots in whiteout. And I'll never forget. The airborne instructor looks down at him and goes, "Move out, sir." Arr! One for Chesty Puller. Arr! And he takes off running for the gig pit. Had the best time of his life. And what was funny was, I got fired up by him, and there was one day though when I don't know what my gig was. They said I didn't shave close enough, or something. I know what it was. They said gig pit, and I said I had the audacity to say not clear, Sergeant, and he went. He looked at me like he couldn't believe I said that. He looked at the guy next to me and goes, "Tell your buddy to stand closer to his razor in the morning. Move out, you." "Yes, Sergeant." And I went. You know what? It was a good workout. I volunteered for the gig pit every day after that. It was just whatever. But I'll never forget that Marine. He was going force recon. He was all in, man. Wrote gig pit on the toes of his boots. That's hardcore right there. Oh, that's good stuff. All right, I'm just telling war stories now. I'm just having a good time. We're going to come back though. I'm going to wrap this segment up. I mean, I only had a couple minutes, so heck, why not tell a story? But we're gonna come right back, and we're gonna talk about this Top Gun stories. Have you got one? And by the way, I'm going to unpack in more detail why some people believe that Top Gun Maverick is exceeding all expectations and setting milestone records on box office returns still to this day. Why? Is it just because it's a good movie? I think it's way more than that. I think it's what the movie's about. I think it's what the movie portrayed. I think it's exactly what we needed. At a time we need it most. Something tells us it's okay to be proud of being an American? Oh, yeah. Now we're getting down to it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. More on the need for speed, solid, conservative, and just plain right when we get back. Y'all stay tuned.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here in the Rightside studio. Hour number 3, local, state, national, solid, conservative, and just plain right. So I'm in number 2 of the Triple Dipper. I'm calling it The Need for Speed. Top Gun. If you got a Top Gun story, I'd love to hear it. The phone number here, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. That's how we remember it. 833-68-RIGHT. Top Gun. Either one. What are your thoughts on it? Is it more than just a movie? Is it have any kind of special place and something that inspired you along the way, or did you enlist because of it? Well, I'm going to tell you right now. I really believe that the reason why it's selling out theaters worldwide, why it's become a $1 billion box office smash, why it held its spot in the top of the box office for, something like 2.5 months or more, and why it's expected to continue setting records when it hits streaming tonight, is more than just the fact that it's a quality movie. Now, I will say this: the cinematography is amazing. I'm not a fighter pilot. I mean, I've had a chance to do some cool things in my life, but that ain't one of them. I've never been behind the stick. I don't know what it's like to land on a carrier, or for that matter, take off from a carrier. But I can tell you right now, there are moments in that movie when you're like, whoa, I can almost feel that. I mean, they went way out of the way to make this the most realistic non-CGI flying movie ever. I mean, and they put multiple, now that you can do good quality mini cams, they put good quality mini cams around inside the cockpit so that, for instance, there's one scene when Tom Cruise is taking off the carrier deck, and as he hits those G's, you can see his body react to it, and then literally as he comes off the deck, and he has that slight dip right as he comes off the deck, but then kicks it up real quick. When the afterburners kick in, you can literally see his face react, and it's real. It's just amazing. Now, okay. I'm going to tell you right now, the prevailing thought is that this movie went out of the way not to be woke. It went out. I know Boomer's over there. If you can see Boomer on camera right now, but it went out of the way not to be woke. It went out of the way not to denigrate America. It went out of the way not to kowtow to the Chinese influences in Hollywood. It went out of the way to make sure that America came out looking good. How about that? At the end of 2 to 3 years where we have been just beaten up constantly, systemically racist nation, BLM riots and CRT in classrooms and pandemics and wear your mask and the pandemic of the unvaccinated and get your 19th boost and for the love of God, we had an opportunity for something with entertaining value, but that it also made us feel good about who we know that we actually are. It's not like it re-inspired us to believe we can be that way. It reminded us who we are. And we got to have that once in a while, man. We got to have the opportunity to be allowed to celebrate what we know this nation is. Not just our own, sense of belonging and the glad feeling we have of being a part of the greatest nation in the history of the world, but we're literally on able to celebrate where we stand on the world stage because America came out looking good in that movie. And I don't want to do too many spoiler alerts here, but if you're just wondering how we look in the end of the movie, let me just tell you right now, at the end of that movie, if you're not too old and broken down like me, you may want to enlist. So, there have been multiple movies. Daily Wire had a piece, came out in April of this year, talked about how many cinematic moments nearly ruined certain movies. So, you've got like Avengers Endgame. It was important that they identify with the LGBTQ agenda, and so Captain America, was congratulating a man about a date he'd recently had with a man. That was so random. Why was that? Why was that part of the movie? Well, they needed to make sure that they got an ESG score, I guess. Charlie's Angels in 2019 just went like cringeworthy, and it had moments where you're being preached at about women are starving all the time. It's hard to be a woman in your 40s. You know, it was even the left wing, the blog or magazine Slate came out and said the film was way too concerned with its own messaging that it fails to be fun. You had Star Trek Beyond, 2016, where the original character of George Takei played Mr. Sulu. He was not gay in the original series. He was gay in the movie. It was important, and that was just basically a woke moment to make sure you gave something to the gay community that believes they don't have enough gay characters. Like you have to have gay characters in movies to feel good about yourself. Okay. Well, all said and done, this article goes on to talk about the number of movies that were made that literally had to throw wokeness in to bow down to some cultural something in society and almost ruined the movie by doing it. Well, not this one. Not this one. I got some callers calling in, so let me grab those before I wrap this section up because I got 2 articles here that talk about what's happening with military recruiting because of Top Gun Maverick. And oh, by the way, sort of an affirming article that talks about exactly what I just said about the fact that this was a pro-America movie that resonated, and that's what it made it successful. I'll grab line 1. Is that Allie? Allie from Athens. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. I just want to tell you what I think, and that is that what always prevails in the American human heart is the desire to be a part of something that is bigger than yourself. And the reason why this is so powerful is because those visceral themes of life, the bad guys, getting the bad guys, taking risks, having to be your true self, going to the mat.
Yeah.
That's what it reignites. And I want to illustrate it with a story about my own father. My dad was 5'5" and a half and weighed 128 pounds soaking wet.
Wow.
And when World War II broke out, of course, like everyone else, he signed up, and he was already in the Civil Air Patrol, started in the Civil Air Patrol when he was in high school. Well, he was not tall enough, and he did not weigh enough to get into the United States Navy Air Corps, the Naval Air Corps.
Oh,
and
wow.
so what he did, as an engineering student, he put a bar up in the backyard. He was still living at home with my grandparents, and he stretched himself.
He stretched himself.
Yeah, he did. He stretched himself to hang off of that bar. And on the morning of his induction, just before my grandfather took him, he went in a 1930 Ford coupe, laid down in the back seat so that he wouldn't squish his spine down, drank nearly a gallon of water. The man was in pain, went in, got measured, got, height, weight, and then he hit the head. And he made it in at 5'6" and 132 pounds. And 2 weeks later, they dropped the regulations to where he could be 5'5" and a half and 128 pounds. But he did it. He did it because it was the thing to do. It was being a man. It was being an American. It was no apologies. It was like, let's go.
Let's
awesome. Do this thing.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I've heard people talk about trying to fatten up. I've heard folks talk about trying to put lifts in their shoes. I've never heard somebody stretch themselves. That is
he was
awesome.
an engineering student. And he had his own dad for an engineering class in college.
That's awesome.
So they came up with that. Yes, they did.
Oh, Allie, I got 2 others on the line I got to get for the break, but I appreciate that's a cool story. Thank you, my friend. You have a great day.
You're welcome, sir.
All right. Line 2, Jeff from Indiana. Jeff Fro, how you doing today, bud?
Doing good, Phil.
Good.
Hey, I didn't have a jet back then, but I did the bike scene and everything when he's buzzing down the strip, and everything. Doing about 150.
Yeah.
I had a CBX Honda, which was bad bike back in the day, and everything. But after watching the movie, I had to get on there and crank it down the road. It run 140, so which nowadays it'd be like, hey, get off the road, Grandpa. Now the bikes they got nowadays.
Did you have the leather jacket with patches on it too?
Oh no, you didn't wear no leather jacket on a Honda, man. What are you talking about? You had to have a windbreaker. But I still got the bike though. It's sitting in my son's garage. So.
How about that? How about that?
Yeah.
Good
I
stuff,
never
man.
get rid of anything.
Well, all right, Jeff. I got one more on the line. Let me go grab it before the break, brother. You take care. Appreciate you. Line 3, Charles from Morgan County. How you doing, Charles?
I'm good, Phil. I was going to tell you about my father.
Yeah.
He was the enforcement director of the alcohol beverage control in 1990 under Hunt's administration.
Okay.
He was the head of the drug task force for the ABC at that time. He flew the helicopter looking for drug fields, you know, marijuana fields back then.
Yeah.
And he a man that they had caught, him and a sergeant, landed the helicopter. He landed the helicopter where they were, and one put his hands up when the sergeant told him to freeze, and the other one took off into the woods, Phil. And my father took off in the helicopter to go after him and hit the sawmill power lines that tangled around the propeller, and it killed him.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
Yes, and the thing that I was going to tell you in a George Floyd kind of way with this here is they asked me as the oldest son, they said, we can prosecute him for running. Your father would not have died. And I said, well, my father should have looked for the power lines. Anybody could have been hurt. And that was the way I looked at it instead of the way that it's being looked at from that other point of view inside that's a non-Christian kind of way. And I thought that would be a story that would, I know it's sad, but there were sad things on Top Gun, too. And, yeah, my father was responsible. It used to be when you would go in and after these undercover operations, they would know that you were going to come in at 3:30 in the morning or to get them at different times. And he organized where in Tuscaloosa and Birmingham and areas, they all synchronized. All the agents came, and they went into the houses at the same time. No one could run. That was him that organized that.
Wow.
Doing that, Phil.
Well, thank you for your father's service, and I'm sorry to hear it ended the way it did. But I've known a few guys who worked those task forces like that laid on the pot fields and tried to find the illegal drug stashes, and that's yeoman's work right there, man.
Yes, sir. And he went in even though he didn't have to. He went in with his guys.
Well, and we need more people like that. To be honest, the people who will go to hard places and do hard things. Hey, Charles, appreciate you telling us your story, brother. I got to go to a break, but that's an honorable story, and I appreciate you letting us know. All right, man. All right, Boomer, take us to the break, brother. We will come right back. I'll wrap this up. Why is Top Gun Maverick the movie that it is in the box office? We'll hit a few markers on that and wrap this segment up. But if you got a story, I'd love to hear it. 833-68-RIGHT. That's the number, 833-687-4448. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back.
Your constitutional rights are sacred.
All right, we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, covering all of North Alabama, man. Solid conservative, just plain right, making it cool to be a conservative. We're talking about Top Gun. By the way, I want to just take an aside real quick and say to if he's still listening, I hope he is. Charles from Morgan County called in and talked about his dad, and I think I just need to say on the air, hey sir, your father was a hero, and appreciate his service very much. Hard places, hard things take hard people, and I'm glad that we had folks like him out there doing the job that he did. You just got an email though, by the way. What was that email you got?
Yeah. So I got an email from a guy. He's calling himself Goose.
He calls himself Goose.
I love that.
All right.
Just saying that. But what his email, it said, as much as Top Gun was all about Maverick, it took the death of Goose to push Maverick to come to the moment of self-discovery. Maverick grew up and matured from the loss and the trial of Goose's death. Without Goose dying, how would Maverick ever change into his iconic character, which we now get to experience in Top Gun Maverick?
I need a moment of reflection now.
Yeah.
that was pretty epic.
It brings back kind of what Allie was saying. It's about that self-discovery.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's one of those things. The movies like that are grounded to some degree in reality. They inspire you to go do more than perhaps you would have done on your own. But they also remind you that those things are possible, that there are people out there willing to do those things. But I love the point he makes there about, Maverick's character, which, by the way, has now transcended 3 decades. I mean, think about it.
Wow.
In fact, I remember when they first said, okay, they're redoing Top Gun, I thought, how are they going to redo Top Gun? I mean, Tom Cruise is like 90 years old or something. How's he going to do that? No, and they said, and I saw a commercial, and they were talking about, Captain Pete Mitchell, and I thought, he's only a captain? Well, I was stuck in Army mode. A captain is a company grade officer it's a 03 in the Army. It's an 06. So technically, after 30 years in the Navy, he should have been promoted a bit more than 06, and all of his peers were now admirals, but he was at least a colonel level is what he was. He was an 06. But yeah, that's that. And by the way, that came out in this Top Gun Maverick too. What Goose just said in that email to you, that would definitely played out in this particular sequel. And I'll tell you too. So, story that I pulled off of, and I could have found it in several places. StarTelegram.com has a piece titled "Top Gun Maverick is exactly the movie a battered America needs, and here's why." One of the main reasons, it's pro-America. And they point out several things. It presents a United States and its military that is clearly projecting power for the right reasons to keep an unnamed rogue country from getting nuclear weapons. No character is perfect, but we're the good guys, and we're not sorry about it. And after years of toxic politics, the failures of the pandemic, and the shame of January 6th, we're they say this in the article, we're in a slump. It said bashing America has become a feature. The left wants to dwell on America's history of racism, and then they go on to talk about how some on the right believe America is culturally corrupt and full of vice and little virtue. I think he's trying to split hairs here. I think it's mostly on the left. But then he goes on to say, there's also satisfaction in knowing that unlike most corporate entertainment cowards, the producers of the Top Gun sequel took a chance and said no to China because Maverick's jacket features a Taiwanese flag, and a Chinese company reportedly pulled out of backing the movie because of the pro-America overtones and the Taiwan flag. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And lastly, I'll just say this. Article from the Washington Times, dated June 8th of this year. Cruise control. That's a pun there. Tom Cruise. Cruise control. Pentagon hoping Top Gun Maverick will boost recruiting like the original did. Goes on to say in here, U.S. military recruiters are facing what some say is the toughest market for prospects since the end of the Vietnam War. And they're hoping to pounce once again on a surge of patriotism and adrenaline that the movie Top Gun Maverick inspires. Says the release of the original movie in 1986 gave the impression that life in the Navy was a glamorous, high-octane thrill ride, and after its release, applications to become naval aviators reportedly jumped by 500%. Then, as now, it says some canny recruiters are setting up information booths right outside of theaters for those who are high on the action they just witnessed inside. I'm just saying, Top Gun Maverick, the reason why it hit all the marks, because it wasn't woke, it made you proud to be an American, and oh, by the way, it was a daggum good movie. That's a great combination. Maybe, just maybe, Hollywood will wake up and realize you don't have to kowtow down to the leftist, liberal, progressive ideologies and whatever China wants you to do. You can actually go be proud Americans making movies, and it might work out for you. $1 billion later, Top Gun Maverick has proven it. All right, folks, we got a little more when I get back. I'm going to get to number 3 on the Triple Dipper. How about that? Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. We'll be right back. All right, folks, we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, covering all of North Alabama. Solid conservative, just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time, I like to say. So, listen, I got to tell you, before we get too much further down the line here, it's go-home time. Some of y'all may be thinking, man, what am I doing for dinner? I do not feel like going through the regular old drive-thru and getting the chicken finger or the burger wrapped in some kind of paper, whatever. Maybe it's time to do something different. Maybe you don't want to clean dishes when you get home. You just want to pick up something different or actually eat it somewhere. Listen, Just Love Coffee Cafe. Phil, that's a coffee place. I know. Of course it is. It's called Just Love Coffee Cafe. But what I'm saying is they've got an amazing menu. They got sandwiches. They got wraps. They got salads. They've got amazing. I mean, it's all different. It's like if you want something a little edgy, like go down there and get. What's my favorite? The Jive Turkey Wrap. Oh man, that's a good one. Or how about this one? You get one of the sandwiches like the classic club they've got, but they also grill it in a waffle iron. I'm just telling you, the food is edgy and different, and you're gonna like it. Just Love Coffee Cafe, 2 locations in our listening area, one on Hughes Road in Madison, the other on South Memorial Parkway in Huntsville. And when you go there, by the way, tell them you heard about it on Rightside Radio. I've been to both locations. I love those places. And I get the biggest kick when they tell me, hey, Phil, we had more folks come in here and say they heard about it on Rightside. That's good. 2 locations, Just Love Coffee Cafe. Hughes Road in Madison, out towards City Hall. South Memorial Parkway on Huntsville, near Whole Foods. All right, I'm in number 3 of the Triple Dipper Boom Air. I made it. I'm 3.
I'm actually a little surprised because of the need for speed. I was a little surprised.
You thought we'd have more phone calls?
Yeah, I actually thought we would.
You actually had 2 that you couldn't grab in time, I tell you what, if folks want to call back in, they're welcome to it. I'll still take those calls, 833-68-RIGHT. It's 833-687-4448. So, sometimes we do this segment called Adventures in Woke World. This one's not that, but what are you doing, Boomer? Are you about to hit the...
Adventures in Woke World.
I did not ask for that, Boomer.
Oh, my bad.
All right, but sometimes we do this segment called Adventures in Woke World. This one's not that. This one is mostly... Now, there's some... You know what? It does kind of fit, because I got a couple in here that are... But a lot of what I'm about to go through are a series of stories where it's obvious that people in public office cannot read the room. Now, there's a couple of stories that I found that were just so good I had to pull them in. They were not public officials, but they were just knuckleheads. But I look at some of this stuff and I'm like, wow. Well, all right, so the can't read the room. What are we saying, Phil? Well, so first thing you might want to think about as a classic can't read the room is Liz Cheney. All right, so by the way, I am picking on Republicans and Democrats here, all right? Liz Cheney professes to be a Republican. Easy for me to pick on her. And this story on Town Hall, dated yesterday, says it's titled Liz Cheney's Inability to Read the Room Exposed Again in ABC News Interview. So here's what it says. It says, since losing her primary in Wyoming, Representative Liz Cheney has increased the irritability gauge that she often aggravates with her incessant war against Donald Trump. The woman is afflicted with an appalling inability to understand why she lost her career in public life. It's both baffling and engrossing. She lost to her primary challenger by nearly 40 points. Folks, that is, I don't know that I've seen a 40-point spread in a long time. Anyway, it says, Liz, you lost by that epic margin because your priority management was atrocious. You decided to ignore all the domestic crises created by the Biden administration to launch an ill-fated crusade against the undisputed leader of the Republican Party, her own party, by the way. It goes on to finish up with this. And now you have the audacity, speaking to Liz Cheney, to continue to lecture the party on who is fit for future office? Yeah, the woman who got booted from her congressional seat, a woman who could barely manage to clinch 30% of the vote, is going to now tell people like sitting U.S. Senators Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley why they're not eligible for future office. Okay, I'm just saying, can't read the room is exactly how I would describe her. I got to call her, Boomer, or what? What's the scoop? Nope. Just somebody...
They're gonna email.
Okay, all right, I'll take it. Here's another one. It's sometimes you wonder. I mean, I know some people. I know some good people on school boards. I know some folks on the state school board. Then I know some people that I think, why did you run for the school board? What do you bring to the table? And obviously, in Minneapolis, they struggle for leadership. So, did you hear the story? You probably have. The Post Millennials, where I picked up this version of it. Post Millennial, dated August 17th. Prepare yourselves. If you haven't heard the story, it's going to make you mad. Talk about can't read the room. Minneapolis School District defends its plan to fire white teachers first. Yeah. Here's the deal. Minneapolis Teachers Union, here we go, first thing. Minneapolis Teachers Union ended their strike with the Minneapolis Public Schools earlier this year, striking a deal as part of their new contract that in the event of layoffs or downsizing, white teachers will be terminated first, regardless of seniority. How did they? So first of all, school board, how did you think it was a good idea to enter into that arrangement? At what point did your attorney? I want to know who was the general counsel for the school board who said, "Listen, what we got to do is this: we need to discriminate." Excuse me? Yeah, what we're gonna have to do is we have to discriminate. We got to make sure that, like, if they're white, they go first. Oh, that'll fly. I assume he'll be making a billable hour when they have to defend the lawsuit. It says, after backlash against the racist termination practice, which is a clear violation of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which bars discrimination in employment on the basis of race, the school district has now defended its plans. Here's their statement. Are you ready for this? Talk about can't read the room. To remedy the continuing effects of past discrimination. Okay, let me just stop there. If you think that what you're going to do is discriminate to help get past discriminations, you apparently have missed the point. There's an old saying, two wrongs don't make a right. To remedy the continuing effects of past discrimination, the district said in a statement on Tuesday, Minneapolis Public Schools and the Minneapolis Federation of Teachers mutually agreed to contract language that aims to support the recruitment and retention of teachers from underrepresented groups as compared to the labor market and to the community served by the district. So bottom line is this. This effectively means that if they go, they call it accessing. You know, most normal people in the world don't have to pick up new words. They call it downsizing or a reduction in force. But they've got a new word. They call it accessing. We're accessing. We have excess. We have excess people. So we're accessing. I think you're excising. You're cutting them out. Anyway, if accessing a teacher who is a member of a population underrepresented, the district shall access the next least senior teacher. This is the wokest, stupidest thing I think I've heard in a long time. And by the way, they're going to be in court so fast they're going to make their heads swim. And the taxpayer dollars from the people of Minneapolis are going to be paying to defend that lawsuit. And that's this knucklehead. This is a jackleg, jackwagon, left-leaning, ridiculous situation. Talk about can't read the room. How about this? How about you guys literally just teach kids and quit worrying about, I need seniority. We got a seniority based on race. We got to. This is ridiculous. All right, here's, by the way, I couldn't help it, Boomer. I pulled your, I already had it. I already had it in my hands yesterday. You brought it up as the stupidest story of the week.
That's right.
And it's not a public figure, but I'm still looking at it going, they cannot read the room.
No.
Headline from Red State. I tell you what, play me some Woke World.
Adventures in Woke World.
Redstate.com, dated August 21st. Up there in Nashville, not too far away from us. You'd like to think this is in San Francisco or someplace, but it ain't. It's right there in the Music City. Vegan activists hilariously encase their own feet in concrete to protest Starbucks almond milk upcharge.
Yep.
First of all, they don't understand the market. They're protesting an upcharge. I got news. It may be because the unions are trying to unionize Starbucks, their prices are going up. Maybe it's the supply chain under the Biden administration making the prices go up. Or maybe they just had a run on almond milk and they can't get enough. But these vegan activists, all right, it starts off by this, redstate.com, dated August 21st. Whether they're yelling at normal people for eating a burger or smearing blood on themselves to protest a ham sandwich, vegans are always thinking up new ways to make, well, I won't say what to make themselves, but anyway, to make something of themselves. Sometimes it ends very badly, like being run over by a truck. And they got links to these, by the way, like vegans who did stupid protests. One got run over by a truck. Another one got clocked for invading a pizza joint and yelling at people eating pepperoni. Another one got the broccoli beat out of them for invading a rabbit farm. But the spectacle is often what they're looking for. Stopping Joe Average from chowing down on his double pepperoni pizza is secondary to the look at me moment. Well, the latest one, and by the way, the guy says, when I see vegans cussing out meat eaters, it inspires me to go out and get a juicy burger or a steak for my next meal. But on Saturday, a bunch of vegan activists in Nashville decided that a Starbucks upcharge for almond milk was a crime. And keep in mind, by the way, almond milk costs more than cow milk because it's hard to pinch the little udders on an almond. It takes great skill. It takes great skill to milk an almond. You got to squeeze them little udders just right. And it takes a lot of them to fill up a bucket. Almond milk costs more than milk from a cow. Vegans are now angry, super angry. They're not going to take it anymore, it says. So a bunch of them decided the only way to get their way at Starbucks was to encase themselves in concrete. And as stupid as that sounds, the visual is even funnier. The grass eaters placed themselves in front of the entrances like roadblocks, and I guess it prevented the coffee drinkers from getting their caffeine fix. 8 cop cars were called to cordon off the scene. And one guy says, I don't get it. Either pick them up with forklifts and drop them in a pond or just push them over like an urban cow tip, which would also be irony. Anyway, talk about can't read the room.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow. No kidding. Oh, my gosh. Boomer, I tell you what, take me to a break because I've got a monkeypox article yet next, and it might go downhill from there.
It will.
It will. All right, folks. Can't read the room. Man, can't read the room. Well, I got stuff that I hadn't even gotten to yet, like the energy secretary saying in a recession that if you'll just spend more money on buying solar panels for your house, they'll give you a tax credit. Why would you argue with that? That's a big deal. Can't read the room. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Having more fun than a man can stand. We'll be right back.
Let's face it, 1819 News is here because the other
Nice. Got me some Black Crowes bump music, brother. That was good stuff, Boomer. You just found that today, didn't you?
Yeah, it was just today. I had to throw it in there.
Just dropped into rotation right here today. That's cool. All right, we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio here, covering down on all of North Alabama. Solid conservative, just plain right. Hey, by the way, I got to tell you, folks, my friends at ZLA Solutions are kicking it. Just had one of their biggest years ever not long ago, and now they just had one of their biggest months ever at doing what they do best, which is putting jobs and people together. So if you're an employer needing to fill out the ranks of your workforce, let me just tell you, yes, individuals can find a job at ZLA Solutions, but employers also are relying upon ZLA all over the northern part of our state right now, big-name employers, to fill out the ranks of their workforce. They can do the recruiting, the background checks, the drug testing, blue-collar, white-collar, no-collar. It don't matter. I always say that. But the end result of this is they can fill out the ranks of your workforce and get you a staff quick. It can be a small group, large group, a whole shift, multi-shifts. You tell us. I'm just telling you, ZLA Solutions, you can find them at zlausa.com, and they are doing epic good things at putting people and jobs together. ZLA Solutions at zlausa.com. All right, I'm finishing up the show today with the segment that I'm calling Can't Read the Room. Most of it is public officials who seem to have no clue that what they say really is falling on, aggravated and deaf ears. Like they're up there just espousing their position, and they think that surely everyone will want to hear this because that's the way it is, and you need to understand because they're elected officials and they say things. And that's just, come on, man, read the room. Look at it. And by the way, I said in my monologue, I think it was yesterday, ain't nothing wrong with speaking to a group and disagreeing with maybe even the mass view in the room. Like you've got a position, go be a leader. Own your position. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the kind of person that is clueless, that says stuff and thinks, this is what needs to be said because I am the person that has the job, and therefore it is important that I say it. And, classic example of that is Secretary of Energy Jennifer Granholm. You talk about can't read the room, my word. So here's the thing. She just came out and said, a story I pulled this one off Daily Wire, August 21st. You may have seen it. The headline is, perfect point, they don't know how they sound. Critics rose to Energy Secretary for telling poor people to go buy solar panels. This is what elitists do. They don't understand. Let them eat cake. It will be fine. Critics absolutely roasted Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm when she suggested that lower to middle class Americans could fight the rising cost of living by investing thousands in solar panels and other green energy initiatives. I know you're having trouble finding, baby formula and affording eggs, and that bacon's gone up 17%. But if you'll spend thousands on some solar panels, you'll save money in the long run. That'll be good for you.
Take out a loan.
Exactly.
What?
Granholm made an appearance on Fox News Sunday to explain how the recently passed Inflation Reduction Act, which has been touted as a tax, energy, and healthcare bill, would impact everyday Americans who are struggling with record high inflation, food, gasoline, and energy costs. Here's her quote. I kid you not. This is her actual quote. If you are low income, you can get your home entirely weatherized through the expansion for the bipartisan infrastructure laws. You don't have to pay for anything. If you want heat pumps, insulation, new windows, that's covered. If you're moderate income, today you can get 30% off the price of solar panels. Those solar panels can be financed so you don't have to have the big outlay at the front. If you don't qualify for the weatherization, you'll be able to start. How tone deaf do you have to be in a recession to say, if you'll just spend, thousands of dollars on solar panels, we'll help you finance it. It'll come out better for you in the long run. Okay, thanks. Moving along. Here's the other one. It's amazing to me when they try to spin a narrative and they're not reading the room. Like, no one's buying this. Would you please stop? Like monkeypox. Oh, Boomer was like waiting for this story. Story on townhall.com. New data on monkeypox will probably create more confusion due to political correctness. When you run through a complete effort to cloud the truth in order to preserve a liberal mantra, you have probably just denied yourself the opportunity for gaining the trust of your audience. Just saying. Story from August 21st on Town Hall. Most Americans are not at risk for infection. Monkeypox caseloads will never reach the levels we see annually from even the common cold or flu. Our children can attend school without fear. Colleges might have to be a little more vigilant because of the student bodies who are comprised of consenting adults, but basically this is a virus that's almost exclusively impacting the LGBT community. And that's a fact, but saying so could provoke the woke crowd to label you homophobic. Therefore, the messaging on combating the viral outbreak is a total mess. Quote, that was a quote. And he goes on to say, monkeypox is not a national health emergency. It's heavily localized. But the Biden administration is once again bungling on a near epic scale. They are doing so much to try and maintain their, okay, no offense taken. Monkeypox, everybody beware. It's monkeypox. Never mind the fact that 91% of all cases, which by the way, in the vast, how many millions of people? 300 million. What's our population right now? 300 some odd million. Yeah. In the population of the United States, we've had something like 6,400 cases. It's like a nothing burger in terms of the percentage of people. But it says, first of all, the FDA rejected 1 million monkeypox vaccines from Europe because they couldn't go inspect the facility. Go read the room, folks. Then the CDC came out with messaging that seemed to imply that it's everybody, never mind the fact that 91% come within the gay community, especially gay men. I'm just saying, read the room, people. We don't believe you. Why are you continuing to thrust this at us? Ain't nobody walking around with no monkeypox. It's a good thing Task Force Monkeypox is on patrol. Woo. I had more stories I couldn't even get to, brother. But listen, it's been a great day. You guys, listen, have a great night. Coming up next, you got the great one, Mark Levin. Boomer and I back here tomorrow at 2. We'll see you then.